was 7:42 p.m. when she slammed her designer purse onto my marble counter, eyes sharp enough to cut through steel. "We need to talk," Sophia said, ignoring the ribeye steaks sizzling in the pan. No hello, no smile, just a declaration that felt like the opening shot in a war I didn't know we were fighting. I kept seasoning, playing it cool. About what something happened at work. Her laugh was short, almost pitying. "Your behavior lately, the questions, the checking up on me. It's suffocating." My grip on the pepper grinder tightened. This was the woman who hadn't paid a bill in 2 years, who claimed to run a thriving social media consulting business, despite never having a single scheduled client meeting. And now she was calling me controlling because I'd asked about a suspiciously glamorous gym photo she'd posted. The air between us thickened. Her heels clicked against the hardwood as she circled me like a prosecutor closing in for the kill. "Successful men don't act insecure," she added, her tone dripping with condescension. In that moment I realized this wasn't just about a question. This was the start of her defense, which meant I was about to uncover something far uglier than I could imagine. The moment she accused me of suffocating her, something clicked. It wasn't a gentle click like the lid on a jar. It was the sharp metallic snap of a lock turning before a prison door swings open. Except in this case, the prison was my own ignorance and I was finally walking out. Sophia had always been good at controlling the narrative. She had that uncanny ability to take something suspicious and twist it until you were apologizing for even asking. I used to fall for it every single time, not because I was gullible, but because I wanted to believe her. I wanted the woman I loved to be exactly who she said she was. But that night, standing in my kitchen, with ribeye steaks sizzling in the pan and the faint smell of garlic in the air, I felt my trust begin to erode like sand under a relentless tide. She was pacing in heels, the click of each step echoing in the open space of my condo. Her hair was freshly styled, her lipstick perfect, her nails a glossy shade of red that screamed expensive salon visit. This wasn't her lounging at home look. This was I'm going somewhere I need to look high-end, and I had a sinking feeling it wasn't a place she wanted me to see. "Successful men don't act insecure," she said sharply, crossing her arms. I took a deep breath. "Asking why you've suddenly got professional quality gym shots on your Instagram isn't insecurity, Sophia. It's called curiosity. Couples ask each other questions." Her eyes narrowed. "You're questioning my work. That's disrespectful." "Your work?" I raised an eyebrow. "I haven't seen a single client meeting on your calendar in months. No calls, no deadlines. Just endless time on your phone." That hit a nerve. I could see it in the way her jaw tightened. She slung her purse over her shoulder and announced she was heading to Hannah's for the night because she needed to be around someone who was actually supportive. The door clicked shut behind her. And for the first time in our 2-year relationship, I didn't feel worried she was mad at me. I felt curious and maybe a little electric with the sense that something was about to break open. About an hour later, my phone buzzed with a notification, Sophia's Instagram story. She was in a dimly lit cocktail bar, the kind where every drink came in a crystal glass and the bartenders wore vests. She was holding a martini glass, smiling at her own reflection in a mirror selfie, but my eyes weren't on her face. They were on the background. Just over her shoulder in the corner of the frame was a man's arm, dress shirt sleeve, gold Rolex, broad build. Definitely not Hannah. Within minutes, the story vanished. But not before I screenshot it. The next morning she came home at 3:00 a.m., claiming she and Hannah had fallen asleep watching movies. She didn't even try to look tired. She looked radiant, like she'd spent the night somewhere fun, somewhere glamorous. Rom-com, I asked casually. Yeah, she said, tossing her heels near the door. Nothing special. I checked Hannah's Instagram while sipping my coffee. She'd posted a video around midnight making tacos with her boyfriend at home. Caption cozy night in. So, unless Sophia had been hiding in Hannah's coat closet all night, she wasn't there. By Thursday, I was ready to put my skills to use. As a financial consultant, I'm trained to spot inconsistencies, dig through public records, and verify stories. Normally, I use those skills to save clients from investing in bad deals. This time, I was going to save myself. Step 1, check her business registration. She'd been bragging for months about her LLC, her business account, her quarterly tax payments. I searched the state's registry, nothing. No LLC, no DBA, no business license. Step 2, reverse image search. I uploaded her latest gym photo, the one she swore Hannah took into a search engine. It popped up on a stock photo site labeled Fitness Model Workout Motivation. Another picture, supposedly from our beach getaway, was also a stock photo metadata, showing it was uploaded months before our trip. Step 3 was where my stomach dropped. Her photos weren't just on her own Instagram. They were plastered across dating profiles, lots of them. Different names, Amber, Claire, Madeline. Platforms ranged from Bumble and Hinge to sugar daddy sites I didn't even know existed. One bio read, entrepreneur, seeking a generous gentleman. Another luxury companion available for upscale men. It wasn't just that she was lying about where she was. She was living an entirely separate life. I decided to go undercover. I created a fake profile. Lucas 35 investment banker, Porsche enthusiast, world traveler. I found a stock photo of a chiseled guy leaning on a cherry red Porsche. Within 48 hours, Madeline, my fiancée, matched with me. She messaged first, "Hey handsome, you seem like my type." I played along, "Thanks." "What's your type?" "Successful, generous, knows how to treat a woman." Then came the pitch. Dinner date, $800 weekend. One loss, $500. Travel, 3,000 plus. All of this for the exact weekend she'd told me she'd be at a private social media conference. Saturday morning, I called the hotel where the conference was supposedly being held. The concierge, cheerful as ever, informed me there was no conference. Just a wedding reception. Meanwhile, Lucas, my fake persona, had arranged a date with her at a luxury resort an hour outside the city. She'd accepted without hesitation. That was the moment the last traces of doubt dissolved. I spent the rest of the weekend compiling evidence. Screenshots of profiles, chat logs, reverse searches. I even pulled bank statements calculating how much I'd spent on her in 2 years, $47,000. Rent, car payments, credit cards, loans. Sunday night, I stared at the mountain of proof on my laptop and realized something important. This wasn't just about her cheating. It was about me taking back control. She had been running the narrative for 2 years. But come Monday night, that was over. When she walked in shopping bag, in hand glowing like she'd just come from a photo shoot, I smiled. "How was the conference?" I asked. "Oh my God, so productive." she said, pulling out fake business cards and babbling about networking opportunities. That's great, I said, turning my laptop toward her. By the way, do you prefer being called Madeline or Amber? Her face drained of colour. I clicked through the profiles. Or maybe Claire, I'm flexible. She stared at the screen like it was a loaded gun pointed at her life. What? How? She stammered. You've been running an escort business, I said calmly, while I've been paying your bills. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. And in that silence, I knew this was the turning point, because from here on out, the story wasn't hers to tell anymore. It was mine. The cursor blinked between us like a metronome. Sophia stared at the screen, then at me, as if either one might dissolve if she glared hard enough. When the silence finally cracked, she didn't cry or apologize. She smiled slow, rehearsed the kind of smile people practice in bathroom mirrors when they needed to work on bouncers and billionaires. So this is what we're doing, she said. You playing detective. Cute. Not cute, I answered. Documented. I clicked through profiles. Madeleine on one site, Claire on another. A third account with a username that looked like a luxury candle brand. Her rate card slid onto the screen like a damning slide in a courtroom. She crossed her arms. They're fake. People steal my pictures. Understood. I slid the laptop a little closer to her. Then explain this chat where Madeline agrees to meet Lucas, whose spoiler alert is me at the Brindle Ridge Resort this past Saturday. Same time you said you were at a conference no one can find. Her mouth open then shut. She went for the next available lever. You catfished me. That's illegal. It isn't, I said. And even if it were, the screenshots exist. So do bank transfers. So do your collabs. That somehow deposit at 2:14 a.m. The smile collapsed. You've been watching my accounts. Mine, I said. The ones you ran up, the ones I pay. I audited the rest. For a breath, I thought we might finally reach the one sane destination admission. Instead, she pivoted like a pro. This is what insecure men do. You can't stand a woman who's ambitious, who monetizes her value. Ambition doesn't require aliases, I said, and value doesn't have a weekend rate. She grabbed her purse. I'm going to Grace's. Grace was our mutual friend, the one Sophia thought adored her. I knew better. 2 nights earlier, after seeing the watch in Sophia's story, I had sent Grace a simple text. Is Sophia with you tonight? Grace wrote back 10 seconds later. No. Why then, after a beat? If you're worried, you should be. I let Sophia head for the door. One question before you go, I said. What's a preferred client menu? She froze. Because Lucas got it. I added, sliding one final screenshot across the glassy counter. And he didn't even tip yet. Her voice came out too bright. It's marketing copy. The doorbell rang. We both turned. A man's voice crackled through the intercom. Package for Ms. Voss. Sophia blinked at me. I didn't order anything. I hit the buzzer. A moment later, the hallway camera popped up on my wall panel. The delivery guy wasn't a delivery guy. The uniform fit wrong, the shoes were wrong, the clipboard was blank. He kept his face down, but I recognized the build. Broad Jim sculpted the shape from the mirror in that cocktail bar story. Wrong building, I said into the mic. Try again. He didn't move. He just lifted his head, slowly like a threat in a low-budget thriller, then glanced straight into the lens. Handsome. Hard. Too old to be playing pretend on a Tuesday. Sophia inhaled. Open the door. The door stays shut. He has my things, she said too fast. My camera gear. Your camera gear is in our hall closet. I kept my voice level. He's not here for a tripod. She swore under her breath, then plastered on another smile and drifted towards the bathroom. The delivery imposter stayed on the screen, staring like he wanted me to see him seeing me. After a long minute, he left, but not before he dragged a finger over the lens, a lacy territorial smear. I locked the deadbolt. When I turned around, Sophia had re-emerged, calm, composed, phone in hand. If you won't let me go to Grace's, she said, I'll pack and leave. You'll pack and leave, I agreed. But we're not skipping accountability on the way out. I picked up a folder from the dining table, the printed tabbed accountant's dream kind of folder. Here's the number, 46,800 and change. Rent car card balances you swore you'd cover when your retainer lands retainers from clients who do not exist. She rolled her eyes. I'll pay you back. How? Don't talk to me like I'm... The wall panel chimed again. Another visitor at the building entrance. Two women in business attire. They held up badges to the camera. My stomach did a small, slow turn. Ethan Ward, the taller one, said into the mic, We're with State Revenue. We'd like to speak with you and Miss Voss. My eyes cut to Sophia. Colour fled her cheeks. For the first time all night, she looked genuinely surprised. Not outraged, not performative. Afraid. I pressed the talk button. One moment. Then I covered the mic and faced her. Expecting company. She shook her head. I didn't, Ethan. What did you? Not me, I said honestly. I hadn't made that call. Not yet. But it turns out the world is smaller than your burner accounts. She swallowed. Don't let them in. Please. I looked back at the panel. The agents waited, polite and patient, in the way of people who already know their paperwork is correct. My mind ran a quick calculus, what I knew, what I didn't, what I was about to step into. I buzzed them up. Sophia whispered, Ethan. I'm done protecting a lie, I said. A knock. I opened the door to two women who smelled faintly of rain and office paper. They introduced themselves, showed credentials, and asked if we could talk somewhere private. I took them to the dining table, the same one that had hosted engagement plans and late-night takeout and spreadsheets no one wanted to look at until they had to. Mr. Ward, the taller agent, said we're following up on reported discrepancies connected to Ms. Voss's filings, or lack thereof. We're not here to accuse you of anything. We just need to clarify a few items. Sophia tried a smile that had rescued her 1,000 times. There must be a mistake. I have a legitimate business. Great, the agent said, clicking her pen. What's the business name on your registration? Silence slid across the room like ice. It's in process, Sophia said. My accountant handles. Name, the agent asked gently. Sophia blinked. Marcus. Last name. Sophia looked at me as if I might pitch her a lifeline. I didn't. The shorter agent turned to me. Mr. Ward, have you provided financial support to Ms. Voss's business loans, gifts, or payments on her behalf? Yes, I said. I can provide statements. Sophia's head whipped toward me. You don't have to. I do, I said. Because I'm done lying to myself. The shorter agent nodded. If you have documentation, it helps. We're primarily concerned with unreported income streams and misrepresented business activity. We're not here to debate your relationship. Sophia's composure cracked. This is harassment. Men gift things to their fiancés all the time. You can't criminalize generosity. We're not, the taller agent said evenly. We're investigating income advertising and services rendered. Do you have clients? Sophia reached for her phone like it might conjure a rescue. I can show you my socials. Perfect, the agent said. We'll start there. Sophia scrolled to a grid of curated perfection. Sun-kissed brunches, luxury hotel lobbies, beach horizons at golden hour. The agent asked benign questions. Who took the photos? How she acquired clients, what contracts looked like. It would have been almost boring if not for the way Sophia kept dodging specifics like they were bullets. Any invoices, the agent asked. They're in my email, Sophia said. My assistant files them. The agent's pen paused. Assistant's name. Sophia's eyes flashed. Do I look like a criminal to you? It's not about looks, the agent said softly. It's about numbers. She set down the pen and with unhurried care slid a printed sheet from a folder. We need to ask directly. Are you advertising companionship services online under any alias? Sophia laughed short and brittle. That's defamatory. The agent's gaze didn't move. Are you? Sophia's mouth tightened. No, I exhaled. She is. Both agents looked at me. I tapped my folder, opened it, and handed over the screenshots profiles. Chat's an organized table, cross-referencing usernames to dates to transfers that flowed into a personal Venmo and a second account with a cutesy handle. Sophia's chair scraped. You set me up. I recorded the truth, I said. The room went quiet, except for the gentle, precise sound of the taller agent's pen moving across the page. She didn't gloat. She didn't scold. She just built a timeline, calm, professional, inevitable. When they finished, the agent stood. We'll follow up, the taller one said. Miss Voss, you'll receive formal notices. Mr. Ward, thank you for your cooperation. If either of you receives contact from anyone claiming to represent our office, verify through the number on this card. We walked them to the door. On the threshold, the shorter agent glanced toward the hallway camera. You might want to wipe that lens, she said to me. Someone tried to mark it. I said. After they left, the condo felt too large and too small. At once, all the polished surfaces suddenly reflective in ways I didn't want. Sophia paced, rubbing her temples. You've ruined my life, she said. No, I said. I've stopped funding the one you built on me. She stopped grabbing the back of a chair like she needed to steady herself. You don't understand how this works. I have people who expect things. If they think I talk to the state, I waited. If they think you did what? Her face shuttered. Nothing. You mean the guy at the door, I asked. The one playing delivery boy. Her throat moved. He's not. He was just. The elevator dinged down the hall. She flinched. I had never seen her flinch. Not at a bill, not at a fight, not at truth. But the sound made her shoulders rise like she was listening for footsteps. I moved first. Pack. She didn't argue. She disappeared into the bedroom and started throwing clothes into a suitcase with fast, angry movements. I stripped our bed as she worked habit maybe, or ritual pillowcases first, then the duvet cover dropping everything into a hamper, so neutral it felt almost clinical. She emerged 30 minutes later with one suitcase and a tote bag. You can't leave me out there like this, she said, chin lifting like a dare. You still love me. I loved the version of you that was possible, I said. The real one is allergic to accountability. The intercom buzzed again. This time no voice, just a long, joyless tone. Sophia's eyes darted to the panel and back. She lowered her voice. Please let me go out the garage exit. Well, because she said, and for once, there was no performance at all, just the simple, miserable truth of someone who'd made the wrong friends. He doesn't like being told no. Name, I said. She hesitated, then Dane. Last name? Silence. I grabbed my keys. We're not doing the main lobby. We took the service hall, bare walls, concrete floor. The smell of old detergent down 2 flights to the garage. I punched in my code, scanned the lane, popped the trunk, and helped hoist her suitcase inside. She slid into the passenger seat like a woman walking into a storm. Where I asked, "Graces," she said, "please." I pulled out, swung around the concrete pillars, and kept my eyes peeling for a broad-shouldered man who might prefer intimidation to doorbells. We emerged onto the street and headed east. Neither of us spoke for 4 blocks. At a red light, she finally said, "Are you going to tell my parents? They can decide how much of your story they want to buy." I said, "I'm done being your publicist." Her laugh was small and ugly. "You think they'll believe you? They think I'm an angel." "They think you're their daughter," I said. "There's a difference." When we reached Grace's place, a tidy brownstone with an overachieving porch plant, Sophia didn't move to get out. She stared through the windshield, twisting the tote handles so hard the leather squeaked. "I can fix this," she whispered. "If the accounts come back, if I rebrand, if I..." "You can't outrun math," I said. "Or paperwork. Or people like Dane." She turned to me, eyes glossy. "For the record," she said, "it wasn't all fake. Not with you." I didn't answer. I rang Grace. She opened the door herself, hair in a knot, wearing an oversized college sweatshirt that said, "Stay kind," like a dare. Her eyes flickered from Sophia to me. Then she stepped aside. "She gets the couch," Grace said flatly. "No guests, no late-night deliveries, no drama." Sophia swallowed. "Thank you." Grace looked at me. "You okay?" "Not yet," I said. "But I will be." I left Sophia on that porch with a woman who had the decency to draw boundaries and drove home to change the locks. I called a locksmith from the car, waited in the hallway, as a man with a tidy moustache replaced the old deadbolt with something that sounded decisive when it clicked. When he left, the condo felt different, lighter, emptier. I made coffee I didn't need, opened my laptop and did what I should have done. Months earlier, I sent a formal statement to my firm's compliance team, explaining that I'd been covering expenses for a fiancée whose alleged business was in fact a personal brand with undisclosed income streams. I attached the same sanitized packet I'd given the agents. It wasn't legally a required, but ethics aren't a minimum. They're a line you protect. By midnight, I was on the couch, with the TV low, not watching, just letting normal noise fill the air. That's when my phone lit up with an unknown number. I ignored it. It rang again, the 3rd time I answered. "Ethan Ward," a man said. The voice was bright radio smooth, in that way some predators sound like PR. "We need to talk about Sophia." "Who is this?" "Call me Dane." The word landed like a coin on a glass table. "You wasted my time." I stood, every nerve awake. "Stop calling. I'm outside your building," he said. The line clicked off. Adrenaline is a liar. It tells you to run, to punch, to speak. What I did was simpler. I called the front desk and asked the concierge to check the cameras. Then I called the non-emergency police line and reported a suspicious person who had tried to access the building under a false uniform earlier. I gave them the footage, timestamp, the description, the fingerprint smear on the lens. Then I waited. 5 minutes later, the concierge rang back. Mr. Ward, he's loitering across the street, leaning on a grey Charger. Officers are on the way. Another 5 minutes, and the car was gone. No sirens, no confrontation. Just the slick, greasy exit of a man who didn't like being seen. The dispatcher called to confirm a patrol would swing the block twice that night, asked if I wanted to file a formal statement. I did. I used my own professional language, the safe, measured kind that travels well in reports attempted deception, unwanted contact, possible intimidation. When I hung up, the condo felt like mine for the first time in months. I sat, let my hands shake, then stilled them around a mug. The heat helped. So did the awareness that whatever came next, the worst part was over. I had stepped out of the script she kept writing for me and back into my own. The next morning, my phone woke me with a different sort of surprise. An email from an address ending in Gov's subject line. Informational request received. Not the state. Federal. It was neutral in tone. This message confirms receipt of materials you provided regarding unreported online income and alias-based advertising. And it asked for nothing I hadn't already prepared. Still seeing the seals made something loosen in my chest. Not because I wanted punishment, because I wanted light. I forwarded the acknowledgement to my compliance officer with a clean note, proactively sharing. Will cooperate with any lawful inquiry. No exposure to client funds. The reply came back fast. 2 sentences of gratitude, 1 of support, and an offer for in-house counsel if needed. At noon, Grace texted, "She's here." She didn't sleep. She keeps saying someone's going to show up. I told her to block everyone and call a lawyer. She asked if you'd help pay. I said to ask you herself. She didn't. Instead, a different number pinged me a single line. You made enemies you don't understand. I blocked it. That afternoon, I walked to the hardware store, bought a cheap ladder and a bottle of lens cleaner, and scrubbed the camera myself. I stood on the landing in the hum of the building's HVAC and wiped away the greasy arc of someone else's territory claim, small and human and ridiculous, against an apartment door that would no longer open for the wrong people. At dusk, a final unexpected thing happened. I laughed. Not the brittle kind, not the I can't believe. This is my life bark I'd been doing for days. A real laugh triggered by something stupid, a meme my analyst sent a cat wearing a tie. It sliced cleanly through the heaviness, and when it faded, I realized I could breathe again without counting. I texted Grace. If she needs the number for legal aid, I'll send it. If she needs anything else, send her to the person who charged her a preferred client rate. Grace replied with a single heart and a single word, copy. That night I slept. Not perfectly, not long, but when a siren screamed somewhere on the far side of downtown at 3:14 a.m. I rolled over and went back under without wondering who it belonged to. Morning brought boring things, emails, coffee leg day, and one more message from a contact I hadn't expected to hear from again, the short estate agent. Thank you for your cooperation. If you receive pressure from third parties, save all evidence and contact us or local law enforcement. Do not engage. I wrote back understood. Sophia did call eventually around 2 in the afternoon from Grace's number. I let it ring to voicemail. 30 seconds later, a text, "I'll return everything. The bag, the jewelry. Just please tell them I'm not a bad person." I thought about the agents' voices, the way they refused to escalate, the way they stayed on the narrow beam of facts. Then I typed, "Return what's mine to Grace. Hire counsel. Tell the truth. That's all I have for you." The typing bubble came and went. Nothing arrived. For the first time since the night she slammed her purse onto my counter and called me suffocating, I felt the shape of an unexpected event I could live with calm. Not relief, not yet. But the kind of steady that lets you make dinner in your own kitchen without checking the door every 8 minutes. The kind that lets you look out across your city and think, all right, now we move. 2 days passed without a word from Sophia. Then on Thursday evening, I was walking back from the gym when I spotted the grey Charger, again parked across the street from my building. Same tinted windows, same black rims. No one was inside, at least no one I could see. But my gut told me Dane wasn't far. I took a long route around the block, pretending to check my phone, then slipped in through the side entrance. Once inside, I went straight to the building manager and asked him to pull camera footage from the last hour. Sure enough, there he was, Dane, leaning on the hood, like it was his living room couch, scanning the street as if waiting for someone to walk into his field of vision. The manager asked if I wanted him to call the police. I hesitated for 2 seconds and said, yes. By the time officers arrived, the car was gone. But the footage, the license plate, and my earlier report were enough for them to open an informational file on Dane, basically a paper trail that would help if things escalated. The officer's advisor was simple. Stay aware, keep logs, and don't meet him alone. I didn't plan on meeting him at all. That night, Grace called. She's unraveling, she said. Barely eats, barely sleeps. Keeps pacing and saying she has to make it right before they find her. I asked. Whoever she owes, Grace said. I didn't push. I'm not trying to get sucked into whatever this is. But she's scared Ethan. Like, bone deep scared. She's been living on other people's money for years, I said flatly. Eventually the bill comes due. Grace sighed. I'm not defending her, but you might want to know she's talking about leaving town. Said she might just disappear. The next morning, I got an email from the state revenue agent. We've identified additional accounts tied to Miss Voss. Several match aliases on adult-oriented platforms. If you have a reason to believe she may flee jurisdiction, please inform us immediately. I stared at the email for a long moment, then typed back. She has expressed intent to leave town. No confirmed travel plans. Will share any developments by Saturday. The tension in the air was almost physical. I spent most of the day running errands, trying to live normally, groceries, laundry cleaning. But around 5 p.m., I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. When I checked, it was Sophia. Ethan, her voice cracked. Please pick up. They know. Dane's furious. I told him I can fix it. But I can't unless you... She stopped abruptly, then whispered, Please, I need to see you. I didn't call back. Sunday morning, I woke to the sound of someone knocking sharp, urgent, relentless. I grabbed my phone ready to hit 911 and check the people. It was Grace. I opened the door. What's wrong? She's gone, Grace said, stepping inside. Took her bag in the middle of the night. Left a note on the couch. Thanks for everything. I'll make it right. That's it. Did she say where she was going? No, Grace said. But I think she's running from more than just the state. The next 48 hours were quiet, too quiet. No calls from Sophia, no Charger parked outside, no visits from agents. I was almost starting to think maybe she'd skipped town for good. Then Tuesday afternoon, I got another email from the state revenue agent. Miss Voss was taken into custody early this morning on charges of tax evasion fraud and solicitation under false pretenses. Further details to follow. Thank you for your cooperation. I read it twice slowly, letting each word settle like a stone at the bottom of a lake. That night, Grace texted me a link to a local news site. There it was, a small article, buried under traffic updates and weather alerts. Local woman arrested in multi-agency investigation. The mugshot was unmistakable. Hair pulled back, eyes red, a hint of the defiance I knew so well, but dulled by exhaustion. The article mentioned multiple aliases, luxury companionship arrangements, and unreported income exceeding 150,000. It also named Dane charged separately for aggravated harassment and attempted extortion. I didn't feel joy. Not exactly. It was more like standing in the middle of a silent street after a storm, debris everywhere, sky still heavy, but the air finally breathable. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark for a long time, listening to the quiet. It wasn't the ending I'd planned, but it was the ending that had arrived. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the next unexpected event. They say perspective changes slowly, like erosion, bit by bit, wave by wave. Whoever wrote that never had their partner arrested for tax evasion fraud and solicitation within the same 30-day span. Mine shifted in a snap. The morning after Sophia's mugshot appeared on the local news site, I woke before my alarm. No dreams, no tossing, no jolting awake, just stillness. My apartment felt unfamiliar in its own quiet. No faint thud of high heels pacing across the hardwood. No hum of a hairdryer through the bathroom door. No cloud of her perfume hanging in the air like a claim of ownership. I padded into the kitchen barefoot. The tiles were cool against my feet, and for the first time in months, I could hear the faint buzz of the fridge motor without the overlay of her morning playlist. I made coffee. The simple act felt different. I wasn't brewing it for two. I wasn't thinking about whether she'd criticize the roast or dump in twice the creamer. I just took a sip, and realized it actually tasted stronger than I remembered, probably. Because I wasn't swallowing it down with a side of tension. Detachment isn't the same as healing. That lesson landed hard in those first days. The removal of chaos doesn't automatically fill you with peace. It just gives you room to notice how empty things have become. The urge to check her Instagram gone. Partly because most of her accounts had been deactivated by platforms or seized as evidence. Partly because I finally understood there was nothing there for me but curated lies. The reflex to track her location, to notice the tilt of her tone when she answered a question. Those died quickly, like habits you break without ceremony. But in their place came the rediscovery of small things. The way sunlight hit the counter at 8:15 a.m. in late September. The sound of the elevator doors 3 floors down. The comfort of leaving my phone in another room without wondering if someone was using my absence to plant a story I'd have to undo later. For 2 years, my life had been a full-time crisis management operation disguised as a relationship. I covered bills she couldn't handle right now, cleaned up lies when they threatened to leak, adjusted my own routines to avoid triggering her legendary mood swings. I thought I was being supportive. In reality, I was being trained to anticipate her needs while ignoring my own. Once she was gone, the oxygen she'd been consuming came rushing back, and with it, clarity. The first test came from her mother. About a week after the arrest, I got a voicemail. "Ethan, I don't know if you've heard, but Sophia's in trouble. We're trying to understand what's happened. I know you two aren't together anymore, but if you have any insight." Her voice cracked, then steadied. She didn't ask me to lie, but the weight of expectation was there. Help us save her. I replayed the message 3 times, staring at my phone. Part of me wanted to call back and unload everything, the aliases, the screenshots, the bank transfers. But the state agents had told me clearly, let the evidence speak. I wasn't her defense attorney, and I wasn't her spin doctor anymore. So I didn't call. I deleted the voicemail. Work became my anchor. Numbers were a relief. They behaved. They added up or they didn't. And if they didn't, you could trace the error. Clients' portfolios didn't gaslight you. Market reports didn't change their story depending on their mood. I buried myself in spreadsheets, audits, and investment models. It wasn't escapism, it was proof I could still be competent, still produce something exact and real. But even in the safety of my work, I noticed the shift. I started vetting people differently. I asked one more question than necessary, waited for the pause before the answer. I noticed inconsistencies faster. I trusted slower. Saying no became easier. No to weekend plans that felt like obligations. No to let's grab coffee texts from acquaintances who only showed up when they needed a favor. No to buying into appearances that didn't match the math. Boundaries weren't just a self-help word anymore. They were the property line between my life and another Sophia situation. Grace noticed the difference before I did. She invited me over for pasta one Wednesday. No centerpieces begging for Instagram, no background chatter about brands or engagement strategy. Just food conversation and the occasional clink of forks. Halfway through, she said, "You seem lighter." "How so?" I asked. "Like you've been carrying a backpack full of bricks." "And you finally set it down." I almost corrected her, told her some bricks stay lodged in your ribs even when the bag's gone. But she wasn't wrong. The weight wasn't on my shoulders anymore. The real shift came on a random Tuesday. I was walking home from work when I passed a couple arguing on the sidewalk. The guy's voice was calm, deliberate. The woman's replies were sharp, looping back to attack him instead of answering. For half a second, I was back in my kitchen. Sophia in front of me, accusing me of being insecure for asking about a photo. But this time I didn't feel the confusion or guilt that used to hit me like a gut punch. I recognized it instantly for what it was: deflection. A tactic, not truth. I kept walking, but in my head a sentence crystallized. "It wasn't me. It never was." That sentence was worth more than any potential restitution from the $47,000 I'd spent. It was the exit ramp from the quiet, corrosive doubt she'd cultivated in me. I stopped wanting revenge. Not because she didn't deserve consequences, she did, and she was getting them, but because I realized revenge isn't the opposite of being a victim. Healing is. The less energy I gave her story, the more space I had to build mine. That I decided was the real win. By the end of the month, I'd made changes, not flashy ones, but deliberate. Replaced the couch we'd picked together with one I liked. Cancelled the overpriced wine subscription she'd claimed was necessary for entertaining. Started cooking for myself again, not for a feed, just for the pleasure of eating something I enjoyed. Each choice was acquired, reclaiming my money, my space, my time. The Ethan who once tried to talk Sophia down from every fight would have been hunting for ways to make it work. The Ethan now understood that peace isn't something you negotiate with someone committed to chaos. When her preliminary hearing date came, I didn't go. I didn't follow updates in real time. I let the legal system do its job while I focused on mine. Because for the first time in 2 years, the only person I had to manage was me. And that more than the arrest, more than the exposure of her lies, was the real change in perspective. When a door slams shut, they say a window opens. In my case, the window wasn't a single moment of opportunity. It was a series of small, steady shifts that slowly let light back into my life. It started 2 weeks after Sophia's arrest. I was at the farmer's market on a Saturday morning, a place I'd avoided during our relationship because Sophia considered it low-end. She preferred imported groceries in sleek packaging, not carrots with dirt still clinging to them. I was browsing a stall of fresh herbs when someone beside me said, "You're blocking the basil." I turned to see a woman in a green sweatshirt, hair in a messy bun, sunglasses perched on top of her head. She had that look people get when they've already been up for hours alert, but not rushed. "Sorry," I said, stepping aside. She smiled. "No worries. I'm just chasing down enough to make pesto before my clients raid the fridge." "You're a chef?" I asked. "Caterer," she said. "Big brunch tomorrow. I'm Amelia." We talked for 10 minutes about basil varieties and the correct ratio of pine nuts to garlic. It wasn't flirty. It wasn't forced. When she handed me her business card, it was purely practical. She had a supplier for locally milled olive oil she thought I'd like. That was the first thing I noticed about her no performance. Just straightforward conversation. New opportunities often look like ordinary choices. The week after I decided to finally use the guest room in my apartment for something other than storage. I'd been thinking about setting up a home office, but Sophia had always vetoed it. She liked the idea of a second lounge for guests. Now it was my space to decide. I spent a weekend clearing boxes, assembling a solid oak desk, and setting up shelves for my reference books. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt like reclaiming square footage in my own head. Around the same time, Grace invited me to a small dinner party. Normally, I would have passed. I was still working through a low tolerance for socializing, but she promised it was low drama, high carb. That's where I met Daniel, a tax attorney who'd worked a few joint cases with the state revenue agents handling Sophia's investigation. He didn't know the details of mine, but over dessert he said something that stuck. The trick isn't just surviving a mess. It's building so much stability afterward that you never get pulled back in. That night, I wrote down a list, not of goals, but of stability markers. Solid emergency fund. Home fully mine, no co-ownership complications. Work-life balance that doesn't hinge on someone else's approval. Relationships where reciprocity is obvious, not negotiated. It wasn't exciting, but it was real. And for the first time in a while, I had a direction that didn't involve dodging someone else's fallout. Then the call came from Lisa. Lisa was one of the agents who'd first knocked on my door about Sophia. Our interaction had been brief but professional. Now, a month later, she called with a follow-up question about a transaction from 2 years ago. After we covered the details, she said, "By the way, I'm leaving the department in a few weeks. Going into private compliance consulting. That sounds like a jump, I said. It is, she admitted, but sometimes you've got to stop reacting to problems and start building systems that prevent them. Her words echoed Daniel's advice from the dinner party. Build stability. Prevent the mess before it starts. We ended up meeting for coffee the following week, strictly about her new business idea. Or so I told myself. But conversation spilled into other topics: hiking trails, favorite neighborhood diners, our mutual dislike for overcomplicated coffee orders. There was no pressure, no subtext. Just two people talking like equals. The biggest opportunity, though, was invisible at first. It was the absence of fear. For months I'd lived with low-grade anxiety, the constant sense that something was about to blow up, that I needed to stay ahead of the next crisis. Now I could commit to things without calculating the odds that they'd be interrupted. I could buy tickets for a show next month without wondering if I'd have to sell them because Sophia needed a weekend away to recharge. This mental space let me say yes to Amelia's invitation to her catered brunch, yes to joining a local hiking group, yes to taking on a pro bono financial literacy workshop at the community center. Each yes was small, but together they formed a pattern. My life was expanding again. The workshop was a turning point. I'd volunteered to run a 2-hour session on budgeting and debt management. Most of the attendees were in their 20s, navigating their first jobs and student loans. During Q&A, one woman asked, "What's the number one mistake you see people make with money?" I didn't have to think, letting emotions dictate financial decisions. Whether it's guilt, fear, or trying to impress someone, the second your choices are about pleasing someone else instead of protecting your own stability, you're at risk. Saying it out loud felt like closing a loop. I'd lived that mistake, paid for it in cash and trust. And now I was using it to help someone else avoid the same trap. Lisa came to the next workshop. She said she wanted to see how a pro works a room, but afterward she admitted, "Honestly, I just wanted to hear the rest of your advice and maybe invite you to dinner." I accepted. Dinner wasn't cinematic, no candlelit rooftop, no sweeping music, but it was honest. We talked about what we'd both learned from the parts of our jobs that forced us to see people at their worst. We laughed about the absurdity of bureaucracy. And when we parted, there was no ambiguity about wanting to see each other again. By mid-November, my calendar looked different. It wasn't packed, but it wasn't empty either. There were hiking trips, dinners, client meetings, and yes, dates with Lisa. My apartment was fully mine. My work was steady, and my personal life was uncomplicated. I realized then that the real new opportunity wasn't any one person or event. It was the shift from living in reaction mode to living by design. The Ethan from 6 months ago wouldn't have believed it was possible. But here I was, proof that closing one toxic chapter doesn't just end a story. It gives you the blank pages to write something better. Got it! I'll rewrite the expanded part 6. Character growth, resolution, and aftermath entirely in English. Keeping the tone cinematic, American, adding emotional depth, and ensuring it hits the Amatu 1075 word target exactly. I'll also preserve the key beats you wanted: final confrontation, legal consequences, emotional closure, and the seeds of a new chapter. The click of the door behind Sophie sounded sharper than it should have, as if the universe wanted me to know that was it. No more rehearsed apologies. No more late-night crises about brand partnerships that didn't exist. Just an ending. The apartment felt bigger in her absence, but not lighter. Her perfume, sweet, heavy, and expensive, still hung in the air, clinging to the curtains, like the residue of a lie that's overstayed its welcome. I leaned against the door, feeling the weight roll off my chest, but it wasn't the instant freedom you see in movies. It was the first deep breath after holding it too long. Awkward, shaky, but necessary. For 2 years, I'd lived in a reality where love meant financial sponsorship and trust meant ignoring every red flag because I was afraid of losing her. That night, I didn't pop champagne or call friends to gloat. I grabbed a cold beer, collapsed onto my couch, and turned on the TV, a luxury I hadn't truly enjoyed in months. No trashy reality shows blaring from her laptop. No influencer live streams she insisted were work. Just a quiet film I barely followed because my mind was rewinding every moment from suspicion to truth. News about Sophie traveled faster than I expected. Her family, blindsided, began calling me for clarification. I sent them the screenshots, the bank transfers, the unfiltered facts. Not out of spite, but because they deserved to see the whole picture. Her mother, Barbara, called late one evening, voice trembling. We sent her over 20,000 this year. Always an emergency. We thought she was building a business. I didn't sugarcoat it. Barbara, you need to cut her off completely. She won't stop unless she's forced to. Silence. Then quietly. I understand. Sophie vanished for a few days. No Instagram, no TikTok, no carefully curated stories. Then, like every attention addict, she came back not online, but to my front door. It was a drizzly Tuesday night. I'd just come back from the gym when the buzzer rang. On the security camera, Sophie. Her hair was damp makeup, gone hoodie pulled tight around her face. She looked normal, almost unrecognizable without the armor of high fashion. Through the intercom, her voice cracked. "Ethan, just 5 minutes. Please." I hesitated. Logic screamed no, but curiosity overrode it. I buzzed her in. She stepped into the apartment like someone walking into a church. For the first time in years. Slow, cautious, almost reverent. No designer bag, this time just a battered backpack. "I've lost everything," she said quickly. "Accounts frozen, clients gone, family won't speak to me. The IRS, they're looking 3 years back. I don't know what to do." I stayed leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed. "What do you want from me?" "Help me. I'll do anything, clean the place. Return the stuff, sign the car over. Just don't leave me alone in this." I looked straight at her. Once that gaze had broken my resolve, now all I saw was someone who'd made dependence into a lifestyle. "Sophie, this is a loan. This is the reality you've been building for years. Now you live with it." Her eyes filled tears, spilling as she sank onto the couch. But no part of me flinched. I walked to the door, opened it, and nodded toward the hallway. "Go, good luck." She moved slowly, picking up her bag, not looking back. The door closed behind her for the last time. A month later, a friend in finance texted me. "You see, this Sophie's been indicted for tax evasion." The report confirmed it federal tax evasion with potential fraud charges if investigators tied her aliases to illicit transactions. Penalties could mean 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. I didn't feel giddy, just settled. This wasn't about me anymore. It was about the law drawing a line she could no longer dance across. The void Sophie left behind wasn't emotional, it was habitual. I had to relearn how to live without someone draining my time, money, and attention. First steps: selling off the luxury clutter she'd abandoned, changing the locks, updating my will, no joke. I also resurrected hobbies she'd quietly erased from my life: Saturday soccer with friends, cooking beyond steak and eggs, managing my personal finances with the same precision I gave my clients. I met Lisa at a tax seminar of all places. She worked for the IRS, sharp-witted and quick to smile. When I shared a trimmed-down version of my story, she laughed. I've handled every kind of case file, but never heard it from the guy who lived it. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into weekend city walks. Lisa was everything Sophie wasn't: self-sufficient, genuinely funny, and unshakably honest. One night she asked, "So what's next for you, Mr. Survivor of tax drama?" I grinned over a glass of inexpensive wine. Living real. No games. No secrets. And hoping to meet someone who doesn't mind that I come with IRS baggage. She smirked. Good. I specialize in baggage. Ending things with Sophie wasn't losing. It was escaping. Starting something with Lisa wasn't replacing. It was rebuilding on solid ground. The past didn't vanish. It sat quietly in the background as a reminder of where I'd been. But it no longer ran the show. And for the first time in years, I wasn't bracing for the next disaster. I was building something worth protecting. They tell you that freedom feels like a rush, like throwing open a window after a storm. But for me, it was quieter than that. It was the absence of a constant hum, the kind of background noise you only notice when it's gone. In the months after Sophie walked out for the last time, I learned that inspiration doesn't come from dramatic speeches or grand epiphanies. It comes from the little moments you collect once the chaos stops making coffee, without a debate about the roast, leaving the house, without tracking someone's lies, coming home to a space that reflects you, not a brand someone's trying to project. One spring evening, Lisa and I sat on a park bench with takeout containers of Thai food. It wasn't a special occasion. We were both coming off long days, too tired for a restaurant, too hungry to cook. The sun was sinking, turning the sky into a blend of coral and deep blue. Somewhere nearby, a street musician played a saxophone. Lisa looked over at me and said, "You're different from when I met you." "How so?" "You don't look over your shoulder anymore. You laugh more. You ask questions because you want the answer, not because you're scanning for inconsistencies." I thought about that. She was right. The vigilance I'd worn like armor was fading. I wasn't keeping score anymore of lies caught, money lost, or boundaries crossed. For months, I'd obsessed over the why behind Sophie's actions. Why she lied. Why she needed more than I could give. Why she chose the short con over building something real. One day, while sorting through old paperwork, I realized the why didn't matter. Knowing it wouldn't change the outcome. It wouldn't refund the money or give me back the years. It would only keep me tied to her story. So I shredded the last of the documents that had her name on them. Not to erase the past, but to stop giving it a seat at my table. Before Sophie's success meant hitting financial targets, growing my client base, and maybe, just maybe, finding someone to share it all with. During Sophie's success became surviving another week without a major blow-up. After Sophie's success was redefined entirely. Now it meant stability, autonomy, waking up with nothing to hide and nothing to explain. That summer, I volunteered for a financial literacy program at the community center. I taught 2 classes a month on budgeting, credit management, and spotting scams. One evening, a young man stayed after class. He said, "I'm not in trouble yet, but my girlfriend, she's always in between jobs. I'm covering everything. I don't mind, but sometimes I wonder if I'm being played." I didn't tell him my whole story. I just said, "If you're asking the question, you already know the answer. Trust your math. Trust your gut." He nodded slowly, the way someone does when they've just decided on their next move. In early fall, I got an envelope in the mail. Inside was a check, a partial restitution payment from the court handling Sophie's case. The amount was small compared to what I'd lost, but that wasn't the point. The point was that I didn't need it to feel whole. I deposited it into a travel fund I'd started with Lisa. "Where's the first stop?" she asked. "Somewhere with no cell service," I said. "Healing isn't deleting the past. It's carrying it differently." I didn't pretend Sophie never existed. She was part of my story. A chapter with some ugly pages, sure, but also one that taught me exactly what I will and won't tolerate. Lisa understood that. She never asked me to forget. She just reminded me, without saying a word, that the present can be so much better than the past if you let it. The real ending wasn't Sophie leaving. It wasn't the court sentence or the restitution check. It was me sitting on my balcony one Saturday morning, coffee in hand, realizing I felt content. No adrenaline spikes. No mental checklists of possible crises. Just the sound of birds, the warmth of the mug, and the knowledge that my life was mine again. That's when I knew I was done telling this story in my head. It was no longer my current chapter. It was just the one that came before. Life will hand you storms you never saw coming. Some will rip through everything you've built. But if you rebuild with intention, brick by brick, boundary by boundary, you don't just get back to where you were. You end up stronger, wiser, and far less likely to leave your front door unlocked for another hurricane. And maybe one day, you'll find yourself in a quiet moment, realizing you've gone an entire week without thinking about the storm at all. That's when you'll know you made it out. Looking back, the greatest takeaway wasn't about betrayal. It was about ownership. I don't just mean financial ownership. I mean owning my time, my boundaries, my choices. For too long, I gave those away, like they were infinite, assuming love meant constant compromise. But love without respect isn't love. It's dependency dressed up in pretty words. Sophie taught me the cost of ignoring my instincts. Every time I swallowed discomfort to keep the peace, I was signing a blank check with my well-being. It took losing a relationship, a chunk of my savings, and a lot of pride to see that. The turning point wasn't when she walked out. It was when I realized I didn't need her to return anything. Not money, not apologies, not closure to move forward. The day I stopped waiting for her to make it right was the day I started making things right for myself. If you take nothing else from my story, take this. Protect your boundaries like they're the deed to your home. Because they are. And once you let someone cross them unchecked, reclaiming them will cost you far more than you think. Here's how I applied that lesson in practical terms. 1. Audit your boundaries the same way you'd audit your finances. Know where your yes goes and make sure it's not being exploited. 2. Separate emotion from obligation. Helping someone is noble. Funding their irresponsibility is not. 3. Track your gut reactions. If something feels off more than twice, investigate it, don't dismiss it. 4. Invest in your independence. Financial stability, emotional resilience, and a strong support network make it harder for manipulators to take root. 5. Practice saying no without explaining. If it's not a fit, it's not a fit. That's the full sentence. Applied consistently, these steps do more than protect you from bad actors. They create space for the right people and opportunities to enter your life.